all of a sudden I'm sitting there, almost felt like I had gotten blown out of my chair, like the room had filled up with light. It was this kind of anime opening moment of just like, door unlocked, and like couldn't take got blown away by the feeling, the emotion. She leans in, she looks me dead in the eyes, and she says, "If I told you that that was okay, if I told you that you could be a girl if you wanted to be a girl, would you choose to be a girl?"
Hi, I'm Katie, and first off, I just really want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for clicking on this video. If you're here, it's because you genuinely want to learn compassion, you want to listen to a story that is powerful, that is necessary to be told. And another reason that you might be here is because you yourself are a trans person. Maybe you're out in real life. Maybe you struggle to be out to yourself in your heart. I just want you to know wherever you land, you are so loved. This is a safe space. We're just going to jump right into the conversation and hear Tess's story. And one more thing, this is a kind of a long conversation. Get a snack, get something to drink, get some tissues. Yeah, buckle up. I am so glad to talk to you, Tess.
I am so glad we finally get to do this. I have been looking forward to this. I've been talking to everyone around me, going, "Yeah, I'm gonna be on I get to be on a podcast. I get to do this. It's super exciting."
This is so important, not just in sharing your story, but in this is going to be up tomorrow for Trans Day of Visibility.
Oh my
And
gosh,
yeah, and that's
that's
just
right.
such a important and meaningful day. And I don't presume to understand the full importance and meaningfulness of it because only somebody who's really lived the struggle knows how important visibility is. So I'd love to hear any of your thoughts, like kind of going into that before you jump into your story.
Well, okay. Funny thing, I am um what some would consider a baby trans, if you will. Basically, I, I'm I'm here, but I'm not quite, I guess, caught up on, how do I put it? I'm still kind of a know nothing baby, in other words.
Maybe a better way to phrase it on my part would be like, how does it feel to you to think of those words like visibility? Is that like actually a scary thing? Is it something that you like wanting to make people more aware that like, hey, we exist?
A transgender person is just looking for normalcy in themselves and in society. And unfortunately, in most cases, um, same with myself, the beginnings and middles, all the way up till the end of transition, in some cases, can be very taxing. I would say that the biggest struggle is that they want to, like, people want to act, okay, our naysayers, the transphobes, the people who would just rather remain oblivious in this world, um, don't realize that there is a struggle going on constantly, whether it's made by lawmakers and governors, like what's happening literally across the country currently, where they're trying to strip away freedoms and say that, you know transitioning for children who know themselves better than we ever did, um, is child abuse. And then the other thing is that for some reason it's still okay for um, for these people to be discriminated against. Transgender people have not only the highest unemployment rate amongst, like, across the board, as far as like a community of a group of people are concerned. I think there's like, you're more likely to get fired. I don't know the statistics, um, but there's also like a 70%, I think it was 70%. I haven't checked if that's been updated, but it was a 70% suicide rate amongst transgender individuals, because it's just, the struggle is so hard. You wake up every morning, you make a decision to be yourself. It's everyone around you that has known you as one thing is going to try their best to keep you as that one thing if they don't accept you. You have to make a decision every single day when you wake up to take care of that, to be yourself and to be happy as yourself in the face of, opposition that you basically get from just, the random person that you see at the gas station. Um, it's not supposed. This isn't some sort of statement towards like sexuality. This is just me trying to live my life. It's not some weird. I've, I've I had to convince myself of this one too. It's not some. It's not about sex. A lot of people, for some reason, ask about that.
None of their business, whatever person's
Right.
sexual orientation is anyway.
But as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to transgender people, it's all on a spectrum. No one can completely say that they are like 100% a girly girl. No person can claim that they are like the most manly. Well, okay. Um, but for the people who are more comfortable crossing that line, it shouldn't be vilified. Transgender people have been around since the beginning of time, more or less. Same with intersex and lesbian and gay people. They've all been here, but I guess when it comes to the American way, and I guess the worldwide way of this, for some reason the view has now become that this is something that is abnormal. And although it's still viewed as such, trans people around the world are trying to explain themselves in a calm and collected way on a near consistent basis that this is normal. There's nothing weird about this. In fact, it wasn't until, I started on this journey that I realized just how much more I had been missing in life. There is a lot of love in the LGBT community that I hadn't even seen. I feel just kind of a lot safer. I'm nervous. I can't help myself. This is the it was fine, and we were talking and it was fine until the record button came on, and now I'm like
Oh, remember that this is for the people out there that want to learn how to be compassionate, or the people out there that want to learn how to love themselves as they truly are. This is for good people. Like, and when we think about that one person out there, that other baby trans out there, not even baby trans yet, they haven't even been conceived yet, they haven't even opened that door into, maybe I'm not being authentic with myself. So this is for good people. So remember that they're good and that they are not judging you, they're loving you as they watch
yeah,
this.
I got you.
Yeah, I'll shut up now.
Okay, I'm gonna roll back real fast and just say, as far as the LGBT is concerned, coming out for some has gotten a lot easier, whereas in the case of trans people, it is still an imminent danger. Reading an environment and making sure that you know who you're talking to, and kind of watching their reaction. It's almost like you have to be an empath or attuned to somebody's emotions if you're going to take that step, because no matter what happens, somebody's going to have a problem and you need to be careful. And that I would say that's what transgender day of visibility is. There's a lot of people who there's a lot of trans people getting unalived, you know, every every year you see it. And it's an unfortunate truth. People will panic and then nothing will happen because this country for some reason doesn't think that transgender lives matter enough to prosecute the person who actually did the thing. It's terrifying. And of course, I have to ask myself every single time I go out, every single time I use the restroom, every single time I every single time I try to make a public appearance with friends or go to work in some cases, what is this person's reaction going to be? Do I need to watch myself here more so than usual? Is this person going to try and hurt me? Are they going to freak out? Are they going to, have some words, or are they going to purposefully misgender me because of the fact that they just don't feel comfortable for some reason about using my preferred pronouns in the way I am? That's what I would say, that's what this day is about. These people deserve their rights. I deserve my rights to not only feel happy as myself, but also to um honestly to use the bathroom when I need to without being afraid of someone yelling at me, trying to pull me out of there, getting the cops called on me, or starting a fight. It's about going out in public spaces and people being comfortable around me instead of seeing me as an oddity. This isn't abnormal anymore. So why are we still trying to treat it that way? And I guess the funniest part about that is it leads me into where I was when I was a teenager. I grew up in the church. My parents, it was like everyday lessons and church-based private schools and Bible classes and all sorts of things constantly going through. And I was taught from a very young age that gay people were sinners, that lesbians were abominable, that trans people, God forbid you ever met one of them, kind of thing. And that's what I was taught my whole childhood life. And so I actually was one of those people. I had gay friends and bisexual friends in high school, and I would debate them, and they would tell me this isn't a choice. This is something that you just feel. And the thing is, back behind it, even though I was just spewing this hate, and I will forever regret that. And actually, I have made amends with the people that I did that to, or at least the ones that I can remember. I knew behind the veil I was dealing with something. I was literally going home. I was telling these people that they were wrong, and then I was going home and praying that I would wake up as a girl one day. So it was always a struggle from internally, because I'm going, why is this thought? I would pray on some nights, just let it happen. And on other nights I'm praying, you know, I I don't want this anymore. Just take this from me. I don't want to think this way anymore. Please. Essentially trying to pray the gay away. And I knew from about the age of 8, playing um playing pretend with my sister. This was like the first time. I have a younger sister. We're all playing in the backyard. Next thing I know, she's going off with the girls because it's a girls thing, right? And we're playing pretend, so I snapped my fingers and I said, I'm a girl now. And it was just like natural, a natural reaction. And then of course, when I turned 12, I guess I'm running through these moments where I guess I saw it, and I wish I had been more vocal, but unfortunately the way that I had grown up, was to sit down and be quiet. But there was this unrest growing inside of me because at age 12, somebody in a movie uh had mentioned something about a sex change, and I was like, what's that? And so I looked it up with my mother, and of course she's sitting over there going, that's so gross, I can't believe this. It's only because she had never seen something like that before, only because she had never had to deal with something like that before in her mind. But I was curious. And even though I went along with her as, a child, a child that follows their parents does, in the back of my head, I'm going, this is something that I think would be good for me, weirdly. And then at 15, when right at the cusp of puberty, or I guess right as soon as it kind of locked in and started going full force, I had this moment of panic. I was so happy to get my first chest hairs and, grow a beard, but there was panic. Like my body's response to that was something isn't right. And the praying became more profuse and more intense. And I would ask at one point, I would tell my parents, I would just break. I would tell them exactly what's been happening. And it was because I had hurt myself over my chest. My I have a fairly large rib cage that everyone seems to, well, used to bring up. I try and keep it covered most days because it brings a lot of dysphoria for me. Big rib cage, wide shoulders. It's people were like, "Wow, you're such a big guy," and I'm just like, doesn't work. For some, it would be like, yeah, that's super cool. But for me, it was like nails on a chalkboard every single time. Just pain, mental pain. And of course, I'd smile and take the compliment because they only meant it as a compliment, but they didn't know. I had grabbed at myself so hard that I gave myself red marks. Um, and I was probably bordering on some form of depression. My parents actually had not ever seen a therapist before. And when I asked for therapy, when I asked that to talk to someone, my mom at the time, sorry, mom, she's gonna get mad at me for this, but she had put a hand out in front of the doctor and said, he doesn't need that. He doesn't know what he's talking about. No, instead, whenever I would have these depressive episodes, she would just threaten to send me off to the funny farm, to a house. And so I masked again, this time even harder, because if it's gonna feel wrong, then I'm gonna make sure that somehow it ends up feeling right. And so my mom had put me in football, but I hated football. Oh my gosh, just so gross. I tried. It was just a bunch of sweaty men and in a sweaty, gross spaces hitting each other, just changing in front of each other, like just whipping towels and being idiots. It's just not for me. I'm sorry. Some people may enjoy that. It never worked for me. Um, and so from like 15 to 17, I essentially could like phase through it again, but then it started on this like loop, and it would hit every like 2 or 3 years, that suddenly it would just hit hardcore again, and I would start. But now, of course, as a teenager, I was experimenting with other things in that I had available to me, like like cross-dressing behind closed doors, and putting on makeup, um, or um, I would literally sneak into my mom's closet because I couldn't own anything for myself because they would go through my stuff all the time. Um, so I would sneak into her closet and try on her clothes. And then it happened at about age 19 that suddenly the effects of testosterone took off in such a way that I am now irreversibly more masculine than I ever was. Like at 17, I actually had a can't take back the past. The masking, the anti-LGBT stuff all started about 17. really hard. I just trying to let the effects of testosterone be okay. I got bigger. I grew more hair. My bones got thicker. Somehow, even my facial structure changed, it seems. Because if you go back, I used to have kind of a sorry.
It's okay. This is how we learn compassion. This is how we learn to care and see that if a teenager says, "This is how I'm feeling," that they can get the testosterone blockers. They can get the support that they need.
Well, the cool part is that for teenagers under the effects of, well, they're essentially going through puberty, but who are trans and who don't have the choice to control their bodies, there are these things called G and RH agonists. I think I need to look that up. You want to talk about pharmaceuticals? Um, uh, I have I have gone on the search for that. Gonadotropin releasing hormone agonist. Basically, these things are made to stop puberty in its tracks. So as soon as the effects start up, um, that's when you can take these. I think they come in like nose sprays or injections, and they will effectively stop puberty in its tracks to give the teenager the time to respond if they want this for themselves. It's almost like a last chance before takeoff type thing, you know?
Yeah, because it's like it's not like you march into a clinic one day and say, "Hello, I'd like to have surgery, please." Like,
It was that, and honestly, I was under the same impression when I first started out, but after doing years and years and years of research since the age of 15, um, I was a little more educated on it. That whole situation. Yeah, you don't walk in and just suddenly walk out with boobs. That's not how it works, unfortunately.
it's also
Um,
transphobic mentality of that it's an easy process. Like, no, it's how many hours of therapy and really.
yeah, because there's also a bunch of rules that transgender people have in place to kind of made by doctors. I don't necessarily know whether they are transgender themselves or not, but made by doctors to facilitate an easier, or not an easier, but like a balanced decision making, because essentially this is full on renovations on your own body, you know. So it's hard to decide whether, because you're taking your hormones into your hands, you're taking your brain chemistry, and effectively you could be rejecting or embracing one side of it in a way that is not akin to natural chemistry. The only problem is that they are also seeing that the genes response for these things um, could actually be more, like, you could have more false positive people who are actually transgender or intersex and have no idea that they are that way.
Hmm.
And it's not like it. I'm not saying that there's a transgender gene. I'm saying that your hormone releases are based off of your chromosomes and your genes. And like I said, I didn't mesh with testosterone from day one. I tried my hardest to. It was really cool to be super strong, but it also made me kind of like, I don't know, intimidating. And that was something that always really seemed to bother me. Um, but coming to the, you know, I come to the end of my male puberty, and look in the mirror and just realize how Oh, this was detrimental to my psyche. So like at 20, I had looked into it at the college that I went to, but was too afraid because my parents um still went to church with them every Sunday, still saw them every week. Like what would they say if their son was not their son? Like how would they react? I mean, my mom would still come over at age 20, 21, having my own apartment. My mom would still come over and go through my drawers, go through my closet, as much as I ask her not to.
That's not good. I mean, duh, but yeah.
And
Was it because that she knew that this was something you wanted? Was she like looking for women's clothing?
no, no. I guess after hitting about 17, there was this level of trust I just somehow lost to them, to the point where they were they were putting, they would put away my clothes, but because my drawer is open or something, I had been doing my own laundry since 15, but every once in a while, like a sock would get caught in there, so they go into my drawers, and that would give them the reason to go through my stuff. And she didn't understand why I would raise such a stink about it when once she would. That's how it went up till about age 25. Just this constant cycle of basically watching myself turn this way. And the other part is I had cut myself off to my emotions about being wanting to be a girl. I had cut myself off to my emotions. I would let it eke out, in a private moment, but I wouldn't try and like walk through it at all. Because I knew that the moment that I turned and faced it and said, okay, yes or no on this one, like, are we going to toss it? Or are we going to keep it? What do we want? I knew that the moment that I did that, I would not be able to drop that subject. And chances are I would have just said yes and thrown myself to it. Um, oh, also, I want to go back and say that for the rules that the, the people have put in place for transitioning, that is a personal view. A lot of people don't see that as necessarily a positive, because if a person knows themselves well enough to actually want to go and do this to themselves, then it should be within their right to be able to do so. I don't know. I kind of like the safe route because I like to take a more calculated stroll about it. After all, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I definitely do think that some of the gatekeeping aspects of it can go away. So, anyways, it was this. I had cut myself off to my emotions about it, and um, I basically tried to act like it wasn't a thing. Like I said, kind of leaning into masculinity and just trying to be okay with that. I didn't take care of my personal image. I didn't like to go shopping because, I was essentially, I thought, it was not of interest to me. I'd just rather put my head in a game and keep my head down in my phone while I'm out of the shop, because it's just not, because I knew if I gave in to those urges, those feelings, then the conversation would start up again. And honestly, I did pretty well about that up until people started saying things that would make me think about it. Like I let my hair grow long, somewhere between 22 and 24, and somebody walked into a room and said, "Oh, excuse me, ma'am," and I was just like, "Oh no." And just suddenly, it was like, okay, wait, now I got to process this whole thing again because I don't know how to. Or um, after my daughter was born, um, people were like, "Wow, you're very maternal." Just kind of had that it's very akin, I guess, very just. I knew what to do, and I'm not saying that men don't. It's just, in my case, it would make me wonder about this thing that I have. It would make me wonder about. I would have rather been a mother, you know. I would like to be. Um, Gosh, and when people would bring up the fact that, you know, well, I can carry babies and you can't, or I have a period and you can't, you don't understand the struggle. For me, and them not knowing that those statements, to a normal guy probably would have been like, okay, no big deal. Yeah, you're right. I would never want that for myself. But for me, I'm just like, yeah, yeah, it's, you're right. I can't. I won't ever be able to. It hurt. It hurt. Best I can say.
Mm.
Um, and it was about a year into after my daughter was born. Um, I had actually had the chance to essentially play. Um, well, I had played stay-at-home parent, if you will, for 8 months, I think, working part-time because my wife went back to full-time, and uh, best 8 months ever. I wasn't qualified to be a parent, honestly.
Dude,
Um,
none of us are qualified. And I'll just put
I
that
was,
there.
I was, yeah. I honestly, if I could go back, I'd slap myself and say, you need to do better about this. Um, Better yet, just take over from there. But yeah, my father-in-law had called up and said, well, I would never do something like that myself, hurdy-gurdy, the conversation goes. And then in subsequent weeks, I'd actually changed jobs again and gotten changed jobs, started trucking. I was in a co-driving position where I was driving with a bunch of, basically it would be me and another guy. But some, because of the training weeks, it was me and two other guys, and it was my father-in-law and somebody else. Toxic masculinity broke me when that, and it was kind of, this was kind of like a always kind of like a sign, I guess. When I was playing football, that's when my dysphoria got really bad. When I'm hanging around with these idiots talking about women in such a way that is just gross, and talking about, I don't know, the game, hunting. What do guys do? Um, yeah, it was like, I am not in this conversation. I refuse to be part of this conversation. In fact, I don't even, why do I try and relate with these guys? Why am I trying to relate with these people? I don't get this. And I kind of walked myself right out of it from there. 25 years old, I come home, I look at my wife at the time and say, I have an identity. I want to be trans. I am tired of being a guy. And she thought I was crazy.
Mm. You'd said when we talked earlier that you had kind of thrown out some hints to her about this. What kind of hints did you give?
Well, I would something I had actually discussed with someone recently on my TikTok page. The I put out feelers. Basically, you know, we would play like the 10, you ask the questions game where you'd ask each other very important questions that sometimes aren't like the most healthy thing for a relationship, but I do it anyways. um and one of them, well, it was more like, what would you how would you how would you react if dot dot dot, right?
Gotcha.
And the one that I did was, how would you react if I wanted to be a woman? And she'd just laugh at, kind of laugh it off and be like, I don't know. you know that was the initial reaction that I got. And then subsequently, she'd always ask, well, where would you be if I wasn't here right now? I said, I'd be a woman somewhere off on the West Coast. I wouldn't be myself. And she would just look at me like I was crazy and then move on. And most of the people around me will claim that they never saw those things. Most of the people from my life will claim that they never noticed. They never noticed, but that's not the case, because I had told them directly. You know, I had told her, I think one night, late night, probably way past bedtime type deal, that this is kind of something I struggle with. But when I told her then, she thought I was crazy, and um, she left for a couple days, and I rolled it back. I walked it back. I took myself. I had tried to come out of the closet, and I walked myself back in the closet, shut the door, locked it, and said, "I'm going to therapy." And I went to therapy, and we talked about everything except for gender dysphoria. I had the diagnosis, but I did not have any any want or reason, for sake of my marriage, to look into that. But it was something now that I was actively struggling with for the next 3 years, just trying to, come to terms with and be calm about. Kitty, hello.
That must have been such a difficult 3 years to not have any real, genuine emotional authenticity between you because this huge thing has just been shoved down.
I had been so used to cutting myself off from that emotion at this point that it wasn't new, but it was now actively like a pain in my side. It was a point of stress, a hot button, if you will, but um I was, because of the fact that I was so used to, you know, covering myself about this. Um yeah, it was seemingly not, it didn't get in between me and my relationships. But at the same time, I was starting to withdraw because of, I guess, the environment I was in at the same, working cross country trucking, things like that. Um, Shutting myself off from my emotions. Yeah. Yeah, in a way. You don't, it's funny. A good person will know well, not a good person, a healthy person will know their self-worth, will know who they are and what they want, and be happy with themselves. I had gone through the majority of my life not. I had done everything for everyone else my whole life, never kept anything for myself. Every time I was going to be rewarded for a job well done, my parents would step in the way and say that I don't deserve that for whatever reason. So that's why this life change currently has been hard to, I guess, emotionally deal with, um, now. As far as like the success of the TikTok and all that, how many people are just I can't even talk about it without getting teary about that one. Um, Anyways, I did my best to mask it for another 3 years. This time, I'm really having problems staying straight, though. It's starting to kind of leak through into my life. Like the only safe space for me to where I could be happy as myself was in Bath and Body Works. Because I could go in there and I have a decent sense of smell. Just going walking through there and getting so excited. But you would, if you had seen that, you'd be like, okay, there's something weird about this one. But it's because it was like my safe space. I could go in there and I could do this. I'd get, clothes for Christmas. It's not what I wanted, but I'm not going to tell anybody that. Another polo shirt. Thanks. Right? I'm not going to be ungrateful, because for a normal person, they would probably be super happy about that. But for me, it's just like, ah. And of course, when I'm home alone on my own time, I'm cross dressing, you know? They wouldn't know about that. And I was looking into hormones, and I was doing this, and I would, in order to appease the dysphoria that was actively happening in my life now, because I had gotten to a point where it's just built up. I was going out and I was searching other people's lives. I was looking at things that probably were less than desirable, but it was because I had to understand, I had to walk that life. I wanted to be over here, not here, you know what I'm saying? And I couldn't break free of the cycle, because if I knew that there was a knife hanging over my head And the moment that I tried to you know move either way, it was going to fall. Kind of got to a breaking point, and I finally went back to therapy. Um, then I had been going for a while, but COVID happened. COVID happened. We all started kind of opening up about ourselves because we're so bored of being inside the house that everybody's kind of like, okay, well, let's do some soul searching while I can, essentially. And of course, in my case, staying hours and hours in the truck staring straight ahead, I had a lot of time for soul searching. And it came to the conclusion that I'm having serious dysphoria issues and I need to go back to therapy. And so I went back. I had a new therapist for our first meeting. I'm like, here's what I want out of therapy. And we sat there for like 5 minutes, not knowing what to say to each other because I didn't know kind of like where the starting point was. She says, let me look at your chart. And she pulls it up. She immediately, right at the top, past generalized anxiety, right? Yeah. No, it's generalized anxiety and then gender dysphoria. And she looked at me and she goes, gender dysphoria? And I was like, well, yeah, sometimes I wish I was a girl. Trying to really downplay it because once again, if I look into this, it's going to be terrible. She didn't relent. She didn't pull back. She saw that I was obviously having a moment in my head of unsureness and I wouldn't say weakness, but just instability. That was a button that she had pushed and she knew it. And she leaned in and she says, what's it about? And I said, I've just wondered my whole life, what would it be like to be a girl? I literally gone through scenarios going, I wish I were a girl, or I'd like have a moment happen, and you know, the thought of, well, if I was a woman, how would this how would, and she goes, playing that guessing game, honey, is not normal. At least not at the, it is for some people, like to question it every once in a while, like just a shower thought of, I wonder what it would be like to have dot dot dot, from the opposite or from another. My thing was wanted to be pregnant. I wanted to know what that's like. I wanted to have a period. What crazy person in their mind would ever want to have a period? Those kind of answers when she asked, she was like, yeah, no, that's no. And so over the course of the conversation, we eventually got to the key question that kind of just all of a sudden I'm sitting there, almost felt like I had gotten blown out of my chair, like the room had filled up with light. It was this kind of anime opening moment of just like, door unlocked and like couldn't take got blown away by the feeling, the emotion. She leans in, she looks me dead in the eyes and she says, if I told you that that was okay, if I told you that you could be a girl if you wanted to be a girl, would you choose to be a girl? And she didn't let me answer. She was like, no, I don't want you to answer. I want you to go home and I want you to think about that. I could have answered her on the spot right there, but I was trying to be very calm about it. I could have answered on the spot, but I was trying to be like super kind of, I guess I was trying to act like I had concern about it because it was like I could have told her right there. But I also suddenly saw the knife dangling above my head again, the metaphorical knife of you'll lose everything. And I tried to ignore it. So I went home. About 2 weeks later, now I'm putting on clothes every single moment I get a chance. I go out and I buy. I had never bought. It's gonna sound all right. It's gonna sound weird, but I don't necessarily need to hold this back. I was doing everything I could to help with the dysphoria because I was like looking up, okay, what do I do? How do I take care of this? And people were like small steps, small things people won't see. I shaved my beard. I hated I had a beard for 8 years. I've had a beard for 8 years. Ever since basically I gained the weight from like post puberty stuff. Um, I've had a beard because I hated my chin. I hated the way it looked. I just hated it. I hated my face. And so I would, I had a pretty decent thick beard. I shaved it off. I never let it grow back. I would get stubble, but I wouldn't let it come back out. And then I went and I bought some undergarments, if you will, something that I could wear underneath that no one had to know about. I would actually have to change out of them when my wife came home, or when I came home to the house. And this was our house, by the way. This was kind of like the home that we were going to build out together. And well, I mean, it was already built, but what I'm saying is we were making it a home. It didn't work. I couldn't stop. It wasn't enough. My at this point, I had put it off for so long that when I finally opened the gate, essentially everything tried to come out at once. And I'm, as you can tell, I'm obviously not a person who holds back on a lot. So um, it was our anniversary. We had gone to New Orleans. I am. I realize that I'm in the wrong for this, but at the same time, we had both had a pretty awesome night out on Bourbon Street, and um, we had a conversation. I had bought her Tiffany's. Um, yeah, I had bought her a necklace from Tiffany's, and I had taken her to Sephora that day, and we always normally go to Sephora. It's normal, but this time around, I was like, for the sake of the fact that she always takes me in there, and I tried to keep my head down for this go around. I said I was going to be interested, not just for herself, but also, well, not just for myself, I should say, but also for her. Because what is she looking for? I'd like to know, you know? She put two and two together pretty quickly because, 3 years prior, I had tried to come out. So we're both slightly under the influence. Don't worry, my daughter is, back in the other state with her grandparents. And she looks at me and she says, "It's happening again, isn't it?" And I just kind of hung my head and said, "Yeah." And we didn't have to leave until the next day. I was hoping that she would just sleep it off and not remember. The conversation didn't go well. And it wasn't long after that the word got around to the family about this. And everybody kind of had their opinions, but nobody really wanted to talk about it until about April or May. We were still trying to live together. No, I guess we were actively talking about it, but everything was very hush. Nobody was like, talking to each other. Everybody was kind of like taking the words into themselves and then just holding them there. I tried to convert myself for the next 2 months. I took my butt to church. I talked to a Christian counselor. We went to couples therapy. I tried everything in my power to pray it away. Back in my head, though, the whole time I'm going, it's not going to happen. This is here. This is what you want. This is you. This is where you're happiest. I'm trying to fight this part of myself because at the same time, everyone around me is saying this is a sin. This is an abomination. This is terrible. Like, how could you? What will Charlie think? What will the future? What will your family look like in the future? I thought you wanted more kids. What about us? my wife's sitting there like, what about us? I guess she wasn't wanting to leave, but she said she was giving me an ultimatum that if I'm gonna be a girl, she is not interested in women. So she just didn't want to be a lesbian, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I tried to convert myself. And then um, about mid-May, kind of hit a breaking point again. And instead of communicating with someone, I tried to hurt myself. Yeah, ended up in the ER for the night. Well, not because I actually did anything. They wanted. I told somebody about it. I had I had tried to do surgery on myself, if you will.
Oh.
Yeah, I was trying to do it kind of like to make it look like an accident in a way, you know. It's a bit more on a personal level, but at the same time, I know that there's people who struggle out there with it. Um, and so I told my Christian counselor, and they called my parents. I spent a night in the box. They saw that I was actually fairly sane, you know. They saw me and they were like, "Yeah, I don't understand why you're here. I mean, I understand why you're here because of this, but I don't understand. Like, obviously, I can talk to you. You're not, you know, crazy for it." I don't think people who are this way should be seen that way because this was a cry for help in a way. To me, it was definitely trying to do more than just that, but in hindsight, it was a cry for help because I had been caught in this crossfire for so long of not the person that I was trying to pray away was me, and constantly being told you're, you know, that's sinful and bad, and you know, we'll get through this. You'll come out the other side, and you'll be normal again. I would literally sit in church and just be sitting there doing this the whole service because I'm trying to like fight this anxiety off of I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to. I just need a release one way or another. And of course, the one way that they wanted wasn't happening, so I needed the release on the other side. I came out of the hospital that night, went back to stay with my wife, and said, I can't do this. I can't. I left her. I left her. I went and stayed with my parents, um, who even then they were, you know, not supportive, but they were my parents. So, you know, see a child in need, they're still going to.
Mm. Not like those awful sorry excuse for humans to throw out their LGBTQ kids and disown
Yeah,
them.
no, it wasn't like that. That's god awful. I can't believe that that's a thing. And I'm honestly trying to. My hope for the future is that I get to be someone who can help in that situation.
But
But
anyway, didn't mean to
yeah,
derail.
no, it's totally fine. Yeah. So I literally 2 weeks later, I'm on hormones. Now, let me tell you something. I spend my whole life I spent my teenage life under the effects of testosterone. 2 weeks into hormone or 2 weeks into estrogen, there's no more anxiety. There's no more depression. I'm on this route forward that seemingly finally on the right track, if you will. There's a new anxiety, but it hasn't come up yet. It's I guess a preview for what's coming. But for me, there's happiness. There's peace of mind. There's this person suddenly that's kind of coming back to life who hasn't been around since more or less, you know, 12 years old, 15 years old. That emotional aspect finally kind of opened back up and beginning to feel happy with myself. It's the small things. I was with my parents for 3 months. And 2 months after that, I was divorced. And I hope I didn't say anything negative about her there. I spoke nothing but the truth. I have like basically an NDA, unfortunately, about this thing where I'm not supposed to say anything bad about her, and I'm not. She actually did try to hit a point of understanding in that, but I had been dealing with so much inner turmoil and hatred from the first part of the year that by the time that she was like coming around on the idea, I was too angry to see her trying. When it comes to my child, the moment that they start, if they ever have a moment in their lifetime where they start asking about things, though, things that are very important to themselves, then I'm going to do the research, because I had to go through basically no one wanting to see what I was dealing with.
Yeah.
And yeah, it, it starts at a young age. It becomes irreversible at about 18, because that second stage puberty stuff, it's it hurts. It's like, you watch yourself transforming into an adult, but not the kind of adult that you wanted to be. There, everything's hardening and forming and becoming a thing that you feel like you've metamorphosed into the wrong type of thing.
Mm.
And now on hormones, here I am having to deal with everything that I did back in puberty for a second time.
I've heard of
And
that, the second puberty.
all the emotions, all the awkwardness, but now you're also having to dish out tons of money for laser or electrolysis or top surgery. It's just there's just a lot of money exchange here. And of course now, instead of having like a family unit to deal with that with you, you're kind of on your own. And I know that there are some teenagers who definitely would not have it. I mean, I'm not going to say that my life was hard, compared to like some who come out in the community and then suddenly it's like poof, they have no more family. I don't understand how that's even a thing. Well, yeah, just and then of course they're like, no one's expecting me to suddenly become super hyper emotional again, just like we were back in our teenage years, but I am. I mean, that's the truth. Um, heightened emotions and awkward body stuff. Of course, then there's also the mental aspect of it too, not just the emotional, but the mental, where you're some days you just wake up and you feel like so blah,
Mm.
and some days you'll wake up and you can get out of the bed decent. Some days it's just roll over, give up kind of thing. But it's I can still remember those days from my teenage years. So it's they're not so far away that this is like a new experience. It's just coming from the opposite side, the side that I wanted to walk.
Mm.
So
How I met you was, well, how I first got introduced to you was, I don't really spend that much time on TikTok, but for some reason I had been scrolling shortly before going to bed and you popped up in my For You page and you were super emotional talking about how heartbreaking it was that you'd found out that your insurance wasn't going to be able to cover anything towards your transition. And I was like, I need to reach out. I immediately followed, sent a message, like, I want to help share your story and just put this truth out there.
yeah, I spent 3 months waiting for this insurance to kick in, you know, for the job. 3 months. And I had asked my employer at the very beginning, hey, like LGBT stuff, like, are y'all like super okay with that? Because I am transgender. I am going to be coming out here in the next couple of months. I was still very quiet about this to my HR rep when I first started the job. And so I called her back that day and I said, hey, you know, I want to know about this for my insurance because my time's coming up here pretty soon. Yeah, came back the same day that nothing covered, no coverage. Basically, my therapist had to change the subject of the therapy because of the fact that they wouldn't cover my gender dysphoria or transgender stuff. Yeah. And I have an appointment in May with the cool thing is where I live, they have a gender clinic. Like full blown gender clinic for transgender people. It's awesome. Which is crazy because I live in the South and you wouldn't expect that out of the place that I live in. But it is considerably quietly more LGBT friendly than some other places. But I'm worried that this next appointment will be completely out of pocket because of this. Basically, we're having to get into legal speak. They're having to change the terms of the appointments in order to actually have insurance cover it. But when you're literally going to a thing called the gender clinic,
I would love to invite you to like look at the camera and talk to the person that needs to hear your encouragement, like what you needed to hear. I'm coming closer to just shining love out of my eyes with you.
you are not a mistake. You are not making a mistake. You are loved. You should be seen. You should be cared about at the same level as everyone else, if not more so, because it's not always easy. It is a long journey, but you are not alone in this. If you constantly think about something, want something, know something about yourself that other people don't know or don't care to know, and you know that that thing about yourself is the truth because of how much time you have spent just constantly mulling it over in your head, then it is the truth. You don't need to be afraid to live that, to be open about that, to start a conversation about that. We all deserve happiness in this life. Everyone deserves happiness in this life, so you deserve happiness too. I know what it's like to not be happy with yourself for a long time. So if you know something about yourself that you're cutting yourself off to, and it's not going to hurt or change anyone around you but yourself, maybe it'd be a good idea to look into that a little more. People see somebody different, somebody shinier than themselves, somebody who's happy with themselves, somebody being true to themselves, and they always will want to pick at you for that because that is something that is different from them. They are not happy, therefore you must not be happy too. And if you are not allowed to show your true colors right now, honestly, taking those small steps towards being comfortable with yourself or finding an easier mid ground if you can until you find yourself in a safe space to take those steps. And if you find yourself in a place where you're not safe enough to be able to be true to yourself right now, forced into the closet, if you will, forced forced in your environment to act a way that you don't want to, find the small things. Find the small things that will make you happy, that no one else has to see, no one else has to know about. Harbor that feeling in yourself. Don't give it away to anyone else. And if somebody else does find that out about you, if you have to explain yourself, just stay safe, but be honest. There's a lot of resources online that you can pull from. There's a lot of people that you can pull from, not just on YouTube or TikTok, Reddits, Discords. They're everywhere. They've always been there. It's just the voice is getting louder every day.
And if it's your religion, your Christianity specifically, that is making you doubt that, I have a conversation on my channel with a queer pastor who he's on TikTok too, Chosen Family Church. about how the Bible is not anti-LGBTQ. So I will link that at the end of this video, and I'll put it in the description as well. There's plenty of resources out there to help explain how the Bible has been twisted to hurt people.
Oh yeah, I've done my fair share of research on it too.
Oh yeah. We don't have time to go into it in this one.
Oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Totally fine.
But yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just saying, like, I hope people will stick around and listen to this whole thing, because there's so much good stuff here. Please comment down below if you're still here and say Tess is beautiful. That's your homework. Is there anything else that you want to say before we say goodbye?
The GoFundMe.
Yeah, plug away, baby.
Sure, okay, why not? The GoFundMe is still going. I'm really happy for all the contributions that I've already gotten. We have made, I don't even know if I want to say that, but we have made somewhere in the vicinity of like 20K so far overall, with the Venmos and the Cash Apps too. I'm actually in the process of looking for doctors for bottom surgery in the future. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, so if you wouldn't mind, keep it coming though, because I'm still trying to get work on facial as well, at some point in the future.
It's
And
all
of course,
so ridiculously expensive, isn't it?
scary to ask for money, but I try anyways.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Be opened, right?
what's that?
Knock and the door will be opened.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. People are actually really a lot nicer than I expected. When you open up about yourself, I guess.
I'll put the link to your any links you want me to include.
Sure, absolutely. Just check just out TikTok and the GoFundMe. I am on Instagram as well, but I don't really post a whole lot. I didn't expect to be an influencer, y'all. I just kind of came out and asked for help. But yeah, it's there. You can find it. I guess that's about it, really.
Great. Well, thank you so much for just sharing so deep from your heart, from these such difficult circumstances, and you're so brave, and you are beautiful, and you're a precious person. And the way I end my conversations is I give hugs.
Hugs.
Hugs to you watching this. You can't back out. It's coming. Hugs. It was truly an honor to have this conversation with Tess and to share it with you. Thank you so much if you're still here. I have many other wonderful conversations on this channel, and I would love for you to just subscribe, stick around, and join this community of compassionate, loving people. Thank you. Bye.